Hey guys, what's up? Some time ago on the channel, I decided to do something different and bring the content that was cut or changed since the GTA 5 beta, but adding and recreating the animations to simulate how it would actually happen in the game with as much accuracy as possible. It's important to be clear right now that I'm not super skilled with mods and stuff, so what I did might seem pretty basic to an experienced user, but it's enough for everyone to get an idea of how the missions were changed and how some were cut. In today's video, I'll be bringing a compilation of those two videos, first showing all the missions that were altered and how they were supposed to be, and then how the cut missions and events from GTA 5 were. With that said, I'm already asking you to like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can get started. I'm going to try to talk about the missions in order to make it better, like not be too hard for you guys to understand. So for that, we're going to talk first about the mission, the prologue. In this mission, you can already discover a lot of cut content right away. You don't even need to actually access the game files for that. And starting with the most well-known, we have a server room and monitoring that is not available in the final version, but is accessible with mods. In fact, I've already shown some curiosity videos here on the channel. When you enter this room, you can see that it is very detailed, including some items that are destructible, like the monitors, for example. I think the idea of this room would be to destroy all the evidence of this heist, as there are some lines of dialogue that show that this room would serve that purpose, just like this dialogue from Brad that I'm going to show you now.
Hey, we gotta torch the servers, come on.
Additionally, there are other ways to find out how some missions could have happened, or some things that were thought of during their development. You can know this by looking at the name of some script, text, files, among other things. According to some files found within the game's files, the hostages could escape in some way, and if they did escape here in the prologue, the mission would automatically fail. Additionally, we would also have some tasks that were replaced by cutscenes, such as follow Trevor or press ESC to exit the cell phone, switch to Michael, or in that scene where Trevor is running away and grabs a woman, some things like that. And these functions would be actions that you should take during a cutscene, something similar to what we probably have when Michael is held up by the guard, but in the end they were replaced directly with a cutscene and you can't move anything, it just happens automatically. Still talking about the game's prologue, but without directly using files, there are things you may notice that are different from the GTA 5 trailers. I won't go too deep into it, I'll just talk about these differences in the missions that I think are worth mentioning. But for those who want to see a video of all the differences between the GTA 5 trailers and the final version, I'll leave it on the final screen or the link up here, as it's more focused on the trailer itself and less on the game files. Got it? But for example, here in the prologue we have a difference in the clothing of the three characters. The biggest difference is in Michael's outfit, as in the trailer he wears a very similar outfit to the one he wears in the mission Bury the Hatchet with that beige coat. Trevor in the trailer wore a black balaclava, and at the end of the game he wears ski goggles with a tactical mask or a paintball mask. I'm not sure what that is. And Brad has the smallest difference of all, as the mask he appeared in the trailer seemed to be just a balaclava, and in the final version it is a balaclava with ski goggles on top with slightly different colors. I think that was the only difference there was. According to some game files, at some point Brad would wear an Ushanka hat, which is a Russian hat for very cold weather, but this was discarded from the final version, and I also don't know where this would be used. In addition to the clothing of these main characters, the secondary characters also had some clothing changes. For example, the guard who ends up holding up Michael at that moment, he was supposed to wear glasses, and the guard who was held up right at the beginning of the heist, he was supposed to wear a bobcat cap as well, which he doesn't have. Moving on to the mission Franklin and Lamar according to a pre-release screenshot, marketing material, and everything else. At some point during development, the mission Franklin and Lamar was planned to take place at night. However, this idea was scrapped, especially since most trailers already showed it happening during the day. I think it was only in that screenshot that it appeared at night. Next mission with changes is the mission Complication, where we see Franklin stealing Jimmy's car from inside Michael's house. In this mission, there is an animation that didn't make it to the final version, which would be really cool to see. Instead of Franklin getting on the car of the supposed contractor, which was positioned for Franklin to climb and enter through the roof, he could simply climb the plants, which I believe were vines, to go up and reach the roof. This animation was kind of recreated or used, I don't know how he did it, by the YouTuber Vadim M, and posted on his channel. So if you want to see it in a very original way, you can check it out there. Moving on to the mission Friend Request, we are now going to take a closer look at this missions.xml file. This file existed in the PlayStation 3 version and also exists in the other versions as well. However, people managed to recover the PlayStation 3 version in addition to merging it with the PC version, thus having a lot of information. So whenever I refer to a mission within this XML, I will display this excerpt on the screen. If you simply Google search for this missions.xml, you can also look up what I have displayed on the screen. You will see that it is indeed in this GTA 5 file. Got it? So continuing to talk here about the mission friend request. Initially this mission was thought to be divided into 2 missions according to this file missions XML. The mission itself wouldn't have anything extra, these 2 missions wouldn't add anything more. Basically it would be the complete mission that arrived in the final version, just divided into 2. The first part being exactly the same until the moment Michael sabotages the prototype and leaves Life Invader. It seems that the first mission would be completed right there. The second mission would probably be initiated right there at Michael's house, I think, not entirely sure, and the name of this second mission would be Selling Short. In this mission, Michael would make the call during Jay Norris's TV broadcast and so on and blow Jay Norris's head, which would make much more sense given that at the moment we are sabotaging Jay Norris's prototype inside Life Invader. Jay Norris is in the meeting room, in the office, holding a meeting. It's very strange that he takes exactly the same time to get to the event as Michael took to get home to watch the broadcast. I had already mentioned in some videos that this part of the mission was not live and was a bit strange. I believe that this is the reason. They should have been 2 separate missions, but because the second mission was extremely small, they combined them all in the final version, leaving only friend request. Furthermore, according to this XML, there is still no mention of the name Life Invader. The name Life Invader did not exist yet. The beta name for Life Invader was Life Blurb. This basically indicates that this was the first version of this name considered for this social network. The next mission we're going to talk about here is the mission The Long Stretch. Instead of having an intense shootout with the Ballas after killing D, we would have a shootout against the Ballas but also against the SWAT, which in the game is the Noose, but here in the script it's represented as SWAT. In the final version of the game, the version we played, the SWAT or Noose doesn't invade the recycling plant and we only face them after leaving the plant where we faced the Ballas. This point in the mission must have been changed much later, almost at the end of development, since D's dialogue line when Lamar, Franklin or Stretch are talking to D suggests that ambush would serve to be on TV. Something about gang intervention. Just take a look.
Yeah. Somebody see? They putting a nigga on TV, man, about some gang intervention shit. Hey, this ain't the police, dawg. This some ballers bullshit.
And what can be interpreted from this line of dialogue is that the D was somehow related to the police, possibly as an informant, and that in that ambush, members of the families and the Ballas were supposed to die, and then it would be shown on TV as just a gang fight that the SWAT team interfered in this way discouraging new members. There are even dialogue lines in the game from the police referring to a fallen informant, further confirming the theory that the D is an informant.
The pigs want you bad, homie.
Snitch must have rolled hard. Who know what that motherfucker pinned to us?
Go!
Prepare to breach.
The informant's down! The asset's gone! Get these guys!
Moving on to the jewelry store heist, we can see 2 different scenarios of this heist shown in other trailers. While in the final version of this heist in the Loud Approach, the robbers wear black motorcycle helmets. In one of the beta version trailers, they were wearing black balaclavas. And in another GTA 5 trailer, we can see this same team exiting the van with weapons but wearing gas masks, and honestly, this all gets very confusing and kind of strange, because in this trailer, they are using the Rockstar van in the Loud Approach, and in the final game, it is only used in the Smart Approach of this heist. In Rockstar's Social Club, you can still see another difference where there is a screenshot of this heist with Michael wearing a balaclava in a gray suit and not black like in the final version or in the trailers. Furthermore, in the Smart version of this heist, Michael wears a large gas mask that covers his entire face, being black with some yellow details. This in the final version, but this same mask in GTA 5's first trailer was a yellow mask, much smaller and simpler. In the second trailer, the mask changed to one closer to the final version, being larger and all black. I believe that this second mask I'm talking about was moved to the monkey business mission where Michael wears it when stealing toxin. If it's not the same mask, it's very similar. And with that, we already have 3 versions of the same mask. To wrap up this Rockstar outfit issue and so on in this heist, the cap came along with the uniform, which was never used in gameplay, but it's available in the game files. And in this heist, regardless of the version you choose, the outcome is the same, escaping through the Los Santos storm drain. There's a slight difference in a screenshot of this escape, with the final version showing simpler patrol cars in the screenshot. In the actual game, those patrol cars are a bit more rugged. I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but I'll leave the image on screen for you. Going now to the mission Friends Reunited a little further ahead after the jewelry store heist, with the XML missions. Instead of going with Wade to Los Santos, Trevor would go with Ron. However, this was changed in the final version, with Trevor creating a dialogue with a specific reason for Ron to stay in Sandy Shores, which would be to take care of the business and so on. Check it out.
Ron, you little bastard! Get out here! We're going to Los Santos!
Are we?
Not you, me and Wade.
What about me?
You're CEO of Trevor Phillips Enterprises. Find us some business so that we can make some money. And tidy my shit up.
However, even so, in the XML it seems to have two versions, because in the description it's written that Trevor would go with Ron to Los Santos, while in the story description it's written that Trevor would go with Wade. So it implies that it was a bit confusing there during the development stage, and they still didn't know if they were going to send Ron or Wade. In the end, they chose to send Wade, and they created that dialogue for Ron to have a justification to stay in Sandy Shores. Furthermore, a little further ahead, there is a very simple change. According to the mission XML file in the mission Trevor Phillips Industries, in addition to Trevor receiving a grenade launcher from Chef, he should also receive some C3 bombs. The Merryweather cargo ship heist also underwent some modification. Originally, the name of this mission would be the Port of LS Heist 2A Finale, and this mission would have some slight differences. Not too many, okay? The differences would be as follows. Instead of Michael going to the ship to plant the bombs and sink the cargo ship, Franklin would go in his place. And instead of Franklin being there aiming with the sniper from afar and protecting whoever was on the boat, Trevor would be there instead. After blowing up the ship and everything falling down below, the three characters, or at least it's not clear if it would be all three or just one, would swim through the wreckage of the ship to find a warhead to sell to someone called A. However, instead of warheads in the final version, we collect a super weapon to sell to the Chinese. And instead of collecting it by swimming with all the characters, Trevor uses a mini submarine to collect this weapon and take it away. A little further ahead, we have the heist from the mission Blitz Play, which also had some changes. The original name that still appears in the game files is Heat, and for those who don't know, this mission was inspired by an American movie called Heat, with an almost identical heist scene to what happens in the game. In the final version, which is the one that made it into the game, Steve Haynes sends us to steal bonds to then deliver to Devin Weston, but in the beta version, we weren't supposed to steal that inside the armored car. Instead, we were supposed to steal armor and combat weapons, and instead of escaping in a garbage truck like in the final version that happens in the game, we would escape in an ambulance, and this would make it almost 100% identical to the movie, because this is how it happens in the movie that this mission was inspired by. Moving on to the car theft missions with Devin Weston, we have some missions that have been altered and even one that was cut. So first, let's talk about the missions that have been altered. The first mission I'm going to talk about that had changes was the mission I Fought the Law. It had some differences as well, especially after stealing the vehicle. When you're at Zancudo Bridge, after stopping the drivers and simply removing them from the vehicle to steal the cars, instead in the beta version, the characters would pick up and throw these drivers off the bridge so that there were no witnesses left. The animation that would make this happen would probably be the same one that Trevor uses in the scene transition where he throws a lost character off the bridge. In another car theft mission from Devin Weston, in this case here in the mission Eye in the Sky, we also had some very interesting changes. In the original mission from the beta version, instead of Trevor going to the police station to get a police helicopter, it would be Franklin who would go in this case. Furthermore, in the final version, when Trevor arrives at the police station, he informs the officer that Devin Weston sent him, and then the officer ends up letting him in. See that?
Devin Weston sent me.
Oh, right. The helipad is on the roof.
However, in the beta version, Trevor would be the one getting access to the helicopter on his own after talking to a friend of his who is on the police force. So after his friend unlocks the helicopter for him, he would send Franklin over to pick up the helicopter. So in this beta version of the mission, Franklin would be in the helicopter using the camera to track people, while Trevor would be on the ground chasing Chad Mulligan. To be honest, that chase that happens would make much more sense to me with Trevor than Franklin, because in theory, Franklin is supposed to be an amazing driver, and in this chase, he can't catch up to Chad Mulligan fleeing in the Z-Type. A little further ahead, we have the mission Caida Libre, which was originally called Vinewood Babylon. Instead of it being with Michael and Trevor, it would be with Michael and Franklin. This helps explain why there is a promotional screenshot showing Franklin riding a motorcycle in this mission instead of Trevor. Additionally, in the final version of the game, Martin actually requests Franklin to do this job, but Michael refuses and prefers to take Trevor to avoid involving Franklin. Probably Martin Madrazo wanted Franklin in this heist because he already knew Franklin from the marriage counseling mission, where he mentioned that Franklin is a smart kid. Moving on to the Paleto Bay heist, this is the only heist in the game where we don't have two ways to execute the heist. However, according to the missions.xml, which is this blessed file, we have two mission names that refer to the Paleto Bay heist being the Paleto Score 2A finale and the Paleto Score 2B finale, which clearly suggests that there were two versions of this heist. According to what is here in version A, the characters would use armor and simply manage to survive and escape the shootout without that final escape part. In version B, the characters would be cornered in some way and Franklin would save them using a tank. It seems like they took and merged the two missions, turning them into a single heist. In other words, they have to escape wearing armor and join the shootout, while Franklin goes in the end and saves them. However, the only difference they had after merging the two missions is that they replaced a tank with a very sturdy tractor. Talking here about the next mission, which is the mission Derailed, there was a change that was also very simple, which is as follows. Instead of escaping by boat after stealing the item in the container, in the beta version, they would escape by jet ski. I think the boat ended up being much better and more realistic. Now going back to these very big changes we had in the missions and all, another one we had here was in the mission Monkey Business. These changes happened mainly in the final stage of the mission. Instead of Trevor picking up Michael and Dave by helicopter like it happens in the final version, in the beta version, it would be Franklin doing that. In fact, in this mission in the final version, there is a comment from Trevor about Franklin not doing much in this heist, possibly an inside joke from Rockstar about this change. Furthermore, during the escape with the toxin inside the container and so on, there would be a police helicopter chasing the helicopter that Franklin would be piloting. Meanwhile, instead of Dave Norton and Michael being inside the helicopter, they would be on top of the stolen container shooting at their pursuers during the escape. This would make much more sense than the final version, because in the final version, it is not shown how Dave and Michael get into the helicopter. Considering the helicopter never touches the ground, it just stops, extends the rope, and ties up the container. Additionally, they also managed to steal the location and no helicopter comes after them, making the escape very easy for the gravity of that situation. So the beta version would be a little more realistic and more in line with what that mission represents. After Franklin manages to leave the container at the designated location in the beta version, they would parachute out and make their escape. Instead, in the final version, they place the container in a truck that Dave Norton takes away to somewhere, and they land the helicopter smoothly without drawing any attention at Sandy Shores Airport. Moving on to the mission Hang 10, originally it would be called Paradise Lost and most likely would show the scene where Trevor kills Floyd and Deborah, since it's written there like Trevor kills Floyd and Deborah next, right? So anyway, however, instead in the final version the screen goes all black and we don't know what happens inside, and according to some news that come out in the game, the suggestion is that in fact Deborah killed Floyd and Trevor killed Deborah. A little further ahead, in the mission Cleaning Out the Bureau, we have to follow the janitor to his house, grab his badge and uniform. So far, it's a clean mission without any death. I actually find it a bit boring because you have to keep following this guy. However, in the beta version, this mission would have been much heavier. According to the mission description, originally called Follow Janitor, Michael was supposed to kill the janitor and then take his clothes and badge. I think that would have portrayed Michael in a much darker light than the game intends, because Michael doesn't want to be the guy who kills impulsively. That's why they changed it. Moving on to the mission Architect Plant. This mission is amazing. You guys are going to enjoy it, okay? The Architect Plant mission has two possible ways to be completed. In the first option, you must follow the architect inside the building without being noticed. When the time is right, you must ambush him and grab the briefcase. In the second option, you can simply kill the architect and steal the briefcase at any time, escaping from a 3-star wanted level. However, according to the XML file of GTA 5 beta missions, this mission would have some other ways to be done. The first one would be exactly the version that made it to the final game, which is Franklin following the architect in the construction, being able to kill him and steal the briefcase, or simply following him and ambushing him at the right moment. The second option would be for Franklin to take photos of the architect having relations with his gay boyfriend and then using those photos to blackmail him in exchange for the building's blueprint. It wasn't very clear to me if the guy was really his boyfriend or just a lover, but anyway. In the third option, Franklin would save the architect from a robbery, and at that moment he would steal the building plans and flee. This one didn't make much sense to me. I think the second option would be cool, but this third one, I don't know, it seemed kind of weird. Moving on to another heist in the game that also had some changes. It was the FIB heist. Originally, it would be called Agency Heist. In fact, this name is still in the game file. Also in the roof option, we were supposed to land the helicopter on the top of the building instead of parachuting from afar. This would make a bit more sense because the helicopter is too far when we parachute. However, when the team is inside, the helicopter is literally on top of the building and then it gets shot down. So I don't know, I think it would make more sense if we had actually landed there, instead of the character being far away and then the helicopter being blown up because it was on top of the building. I don't know if you guys exactly understood what I meant, but it would make a bit more sense in the beta version. Now, moving on to a mission that will probably blow your mind. We're talking here about the mission Legal Trouble, because look at this craziness. There's a reference that doesn't make much sense in the Legal Trouble mission within this XML file, which is only written as follows: Save Film Studio, which doesn't make it very clear what this mission should be. There's no mission description to be exact. However, outside of this mission, there's another mission also called Blowback, and look at this cool thing. The name is Solomon 3, meaning it has to do with Solomon Richards, and the name is Blowback. And it seems that instead of creating a specific mission for for the legal trouble mission, they took this other mission called Blowback and mixed it up to turn it into this. Because if you look at this mission Blowback, it has the following script. Trevor would meet Tao Cheng's translator, the one we know from the mission Trevor Phillips Industries, and they would meet in an apartment. Trevor suspects the translator is wearing a wire or something and tries to catch the translator, who ends up escaping, resulting in a chase through the city. The police join this chase and they all head to Los Santos Airport. During the chase inside the airport, there would be several explosions involving 747 planes and smaller aircraft, until at a certain point Trevor and the police would manage to corner the translator. In other words, this mission is very similar to the mission Legal Trouble that made it to the final version of the game with some adaptations, and with the translator being replaced by Molly. And this basically makes it clear that this cut Trevor mission was used in the Legal Trouble mission. Speaking now of side missions, let's talk here about the Epsilon Cult. They are simpler missions, but there are changes in 3 missions of the Epsilon Cult. The first one is that in the final version, there is a mission where Michael must wear the Epsilon robe for 10 days to cleanse his body of the anti-testimony, but in the beta version this was planned to be for 50 consecutive days, and thank God they changed that. Take a look at the script. Furthermore, in the mission of running 8 km or 5 miles in the desert, originally Michael was supposed to run 20 miles in the desert, which would also be 32 km, so that developer there who decreased that thing was a great help to the community. I won't even say anything else. And finally, in the last mission of Epsilon, there is a change in the last version, which is the version where Chris Formage appears for the first time. The leader of the Epsilon Cult was supposed to be, according to the script, a short man wearing a wig, which is different from the final version. Not that Chris Formage is tall or anything, but it doesn't quite match the description that is here in this file. Speaking now about another crazy and weird stranger mission, we have Barry's missions, which are the Weed March missions and so on. And in the missions that made it to the final version of the game, we must steal some vehicles that have magical substances in the back. In the original beta version, we could use a monster truck liberator. However, since there are 2 missions from Barry that we do here in the game, it would probably be a mission stealing with that old pickup truck that we use in the game itself, and another mission with us using that monster truck. Now moving on from the strange and crazy missions and heading to Mako's family mission that I don't even know how to categorize, if it's a random event or not, or if it's part of the main stories. But in the mission where we should save Jimmy instead of men who kidnapped him because he was trolling people on the internet, Jimmy would actually be kidnapped after setting up an online date with a girl. And when he arrived at the meeting spot, he would be approached by fat women who would throw him in the trunk to take him to a live roleplay event that was happening. At that moment, then Michael should intercept the car and save his son, just like we do in the final version of the game. Now that we've seen the altered missions, let's move on to the missions that were completely cut from the game, but still have info inside the files and on various forums across the internet. Inside the missions.xml file we were studying in the previous video, we will find 2 more mission sides for Franklin. So I'm going to talk about the first one here, which consists of 5 missions, and then the second side, which has 2 more missions. The objective of this first set of missions was for Franklin to help 2 neighbors who were fighting and hating each other, with the goal of one helping to prank the other, which was completely removed from the final version. The 2 neighbors here in the script are identified as Lady A and Lady B. In the first mission, one of the neighbors would ask Franklin to go to the other neighbor's house and break the car window with a white weapon. After that, he would drive to the pier and throw the car into the deep sea. In the second mission, he would meet the woman whose car he wrecked and regrets destroying her car. So he and the neighbor whose car he wrecked, who in this case is Mrs. B, plan revenge against the first neighbor, who is Mrs. A. This first neighbor was very proud of her backyard. So Mrs. B and Franklin decide that Franklin would pee in Mrs. A's pool. However, when Franklin is there peeing in the pool, Mrs. A's husband arrives and calls the police, and Franklin has to run away. In the third mission, Franklin meets the neighbor A crying on the sidewalk, so they start driving around the neighborhood spreading gossip about neighbor B using a megaphone. In the fourth mission, Franklin helps neighbor B by taking neighbor A's husband, who was the same one who had seen him urinating in the pool earlier, to a bar where he would meet neighbor B. After neighbor A's husband meets neighbor B manages to seduce neighbor A's husband, who already had a crush on her, and as a result, neighbor A's husband cheats on her with neighbor B. During a moment where the two are having some relations that are written in the script, but I won't mention here, Franklin takes a photo and sends it to neighbor A. Further ahead, there is a fifth and final mission where Franklin will meet neighbor A buying garden shears, and neighbor B arrives and attacks her with a golf club. Then the two start fighting. Franklin can intervene or simply let them kill each other. There is a codename called Rush, which was the secret name for GTA 5 during its development. In this project, you can find the names of various things and characters that later match perfectly within GTA 5, and there are two names that fit very well for the names of these women from the removed mission. Everything indicates that the names of these women would be as follows. Neighbor A would be Mrs. Avery, who according to the description here would be a neurotic soccer mom, a 48-year-old housewife, anxious and drugged with painkillers, as well as very angry with neighbor Mrs. Bell. And neighbor B would be Mrs. Bell, who is a swinger, a smooth Californian divorcee, 45 years old, unattractive but comfortable with herself. These names are not 100% certain as they did not make it to the final version of the game, but they match very well with the description we have in this Rush project codename. Besides this Stranger and Freaks side quest, we also have another one that is part of two missions involving the character Dale, whose model is actually in the game and can be easily spawned using a mod menu. These missions would be carried out by Franklin and there would be only two of them. In the first mission, Franklin would meet Dale outside the shoe store, and Dale would ask Franklin to take 10 photos of beautiful women for him. These photos could be taken during free roam, not necessarily within a mission, making it very similar to a collectible. After taking all these photos, the second mission would unlock on the map, and in the second mission, Franklin would meet Dale again at the shoe store, where Franklin would find out that Dale was planning to drug those 10 women that Franklin sent the photos to. When Franklin discovers this, he tries to stop him, but Dale ends up being faster, drugging Franklin as well. Franklin chases Dale even while drugged and kills him during a car chase, thus finishing the mission. There would also be one more mission from Barry, which would be another mission to transport magical substances, which did not make it to the final version of the game. In the final version of the game, we only have two missions where we transport magical substances using two old vans that we already know which ones they are that I have already shown to you. However, here would also have one more mission where we would transport this by helicopter as well. I think they ended up removing this third mission because, I don't know, it would just be more of the same but in a different vehicle. Now let's talk about a mission that should have been in the main story. It wouldn't be Stranger and Freaks, but it wasn't included. I don't actually know why this mission was removed because I would really like to see it, since it involves characters from GTA 4 and it seems like it would have been a main story mission. This mission would be for Devin Weston and it would be carried out by Trevor and Franklin. I don't know which of the two would start and if it would be simultaneous or not. Anyway, in this mission we would steal a red Stinger car, which actually appears in the mission Pac-Man, and the car has a license plate that says Alpha Dog. However, the mission where we would steal this car that appears on the car carrier truck was discarded. This mission would be like this. To steal the car, Franklin would take a picture of a beautiful girl and create a profile of her on Facebook, which later became known as Life Invader within the game, but in the missions.xml file, the name is still Facebook, got it? So I'm going to refer to it as Facebook here. Using this fake profile, Franklin would get in touch with Bruce, Nico Bellic friend from GTA 4, who was passionate about cars and also liked to call himself Alpha Dog. Hence the license plate of the car in question that would be stolen would be Alpha Dog. Moving on to this mission, Franklin, pretending to be the girl, would set up a meeting with Bruce, who would show up with this red car. At the time of the meeting, Trevor and Franklin would pay a pretty girl to go to the agreed location and hang out with Bruce while they watched from a distance. When the two got out of the car, I don't know, to date, do something else, Trevor would take some photos that could possibly be used to blackmail Bruce or something like that. It's not very well explained, and meanwhile Franklin would get into the red car and take it to Devin Weston's garage. And finally, we have the mega heist of Sharmota, which is the Sharmota job. According to the missions.sml, this heist would have 3 stages: planning, preparations, and approach, like the final heist and so on. Michael and Trevor would steal the vault of Marty Madrazo, a prized horse, and then proceed to kidnap Marty Madrazo's wife. Just to provide some context, most likely this heist would take place right after the Caida Libre mission. This means that Michael and Trevor would have visited Marty Madrazo's house, scoped it out, and so on. This is when the dialogue in the Caida Libre mission happened, where Trevor mentions wanting to rob Martin Madrazo's house, leading to a misunderstanding that they were hitting the house, and Michael refuses to steal from Martin.
The little fertility statues, whatever. The guy has trouble getting it up. We'll clear 2-3 million on those, easy. Perverts will pay anything for hope.
We weren't casing the joint.
We didn't agree to a fee for this job, so what's it all about?
Okay, the guy lives well. That don't mean we're robbing him, but it does mean he's got money to pay people who help him. When the time comes, he'll do the right thing.
However, according to the files here in beta, I think that at this moment, the planning for this heist would begin. The planning would happen as follows. Michael and Trevor would pretend to be a gay couple interested in acquiring Martin Madrazo's ranch, which is for sale. They go there with a real estate agent. They schedule the meeting, use different names for themselves. I think Michael's name would be Albert, something like that. I don't remember exactly. There are actually several audios and dialogues that are still in the game files. And in this mission, where they supposedly go there to look at the house, etc., Patricia, they discover that there is a painting and a safe behind this painting. The safe is embedded in the wall in addition to an award-winning horse at Martin Madrazo's ranch worth millions of dollars. By the amount of audio files about this heist in the game, we can see that this heist reached a very advanced stage of development and then it was cut. So basically, according to these files, we would have 3 ways for this heist to be executed. In the first approach, Michael would be dressed as a thief, kill the guards, and enter the house stealthily after they gain access to the safe, most likely with some hacker or something like that. Patricia would wake up and hear the noise. When she goes to check, she would be subdued by Trevor, and Trevor wouldn't kill her because when he met her in the mission Caida Libre, he was already kind of smitten, you know, there he even says that. And after that, instead of killing Patricia, Trevor would use her as a hostage to get into the getaway van where Franklin would be waiting while Michael would escape through the back with the prized horse. On the second approach, Michael, Trevor, and Franklin would arrive at Martin Madrazo's ranch during an event that Martin Madrazo was hosting. They would disguise themselves as mimes, and once inside, they would take everyone in the house hostage. Due to the noise inside the house, the guards outside would be alerted. Meanwhile, Trevor would sneak out the back to steal a horse, while Franklin would secure a rope to the safe, tie it to a van or another pickup truck, but I understood it was a van, and then accelerate to pull the safe off the wall. After the safe is removed from the wall and Trevor manages to steal the horse, the guards would arrive at the ranch, leading to a big shootout. After the shootout, they would successfully load the safe into the van along with the horse. Trevor would then hold Patricia hostage, threatening that if anyone followed them, Patricia would be killed. Some images inside the game files in the PC version of GTA 5 show Martin Madrazo's vault room during development, with the vault being pulled out of the wall with a rope tied to it, suggesting that this vault was actually going to be ripped out and like there would be a specific cutscene for it and stuff. On the third approach, Trevor, Michael, and Franklin would arrive at the location dressed as clowns instead of mimes, arriving during the same party but a little earlier. Instead of taking hostages, they would start performing some tricks to distract the guards. Franklin would first start entertaining the crowd with magic trick, while Michael would try to stealthily steal from the safe, and Trevor would try to gain access to the stables and steal a horse. As Trevor made his way there, Patricia would notice his action. When Trevor was close to stealing the horse, Patricia would spot him. Instead of killing her, Trevor would subdue her, causing her to scream and start a shootout. However, no one would shoot Trevor because of Patricia. They would successfully steal the horse and the safe, kidnap Patricia, and make their escape. The horses that would possibly be used in this mission are still in the game, but there is no accessible model, only a non-rendered one. However, you can see the horses themselves on the in-game TV. Perhaps they are the same horses that were used in Red Dead 1, as they appear in a Pisswasser commercial, in an episode of Fame or Shame, and in the movie Capolavoro at the in-game cinemas. So there really was some sort of horse stage there and all, but the guys completely removed it from the final version. Then since this heist was completely removed, they adapted it to fit within the Caida Libre mission, with Trevor taking out the house, then assaulting Martin Madrazo and kidnapping his wife. Because in any case, Patricia would be kidnapped in the end, and it would be by Trevor as he had a little crush on her. So the guys just scrapped that whole heist and made this little ending that was kind of improvised, but there are a lot of game files. Maybe one day I'll even try to simulate what this complete heist would look like. The more I see stuff about GTA 5, the more I wonder how much content got cut from GTA 6. It's wild to spot all these differences, not just in the beta, but in the trailers too. If you want to check out the differences between GTA 6 Trailer 1 and Trailer 2, just click right here next to the yellow arrow, because that video is awesome. And that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe. Big hugs to everyone, and see ya.